Hello everyone, sit tight. We're gonna get going in just a few minutes. If you're watching this after the stream, make sure you check the comments for a link to the notes doc. Or notes, the notes will be there. And it has time code so you can seek through the whole video in case you don't want to watch the whole thing. So we're gonna get started in a few minutes, but first I will say hello to folks and get my tabs with my videos paused and all things like that. So I'll say hello in just a bit after I rearrange things. Hello, Maiko. Hello, Unexpected Maker. Hello, Randall. Hello, Pierre. Hello, Electronic Enigma Zone. Hello, David. Hello, Beata. Hi, Paul. Nice haircut. Thank you. Somebody stole my hair. Oh, that's right. I got my haircut after the stream on Friday, didn't I? Hey, Hams Labs. Hams Labs. Hello, Luis. Hello, Paul. Hey, Johnny. Hey, Dan. You can barely see Spook in the top there, can't you? He's enjoying the sun. Jeff asks, hey, what camera are you using? Hello, Hector. This camera here is a Sony ZV-1 with a, what's it called? I'm blanking on the name. An HDMI to USB converter. It starts with an M and I can't remember. Hello, Mr. Dalgard. Hello, Mark. Hello, Minnesota Mentat. And then the cat cam here, this one, is a C920, 922. It's actually been like not working super well. I had to like unplug and replug it back in, and now it started working again. No problem, Jeff. It's a common request. So it has like 2 different modes. This is eye tracking mode, so hopefully it will like the focus is really good. And then it has a product mode as well. So if I hold stuff up, it will definitely ignore my face. Hi, Keith. Hey, Charles. Yeah, so I think we're going. It's pretty nice here today. It's in the 50s Fahrenheit. Sun is out, went for a walk. I made way more progress on the ESP stuff than I thought I would. Well, not because of me, but because of Ivan's help. All right, let's get going. I don't see why we need to wait any longer. We'll probably still collect people for a little while here. So, hello everyone. My name is Scott, and I work for Adafruit, based on Adafruit, particularly on CircuitPython. If you don't know, Adafruit is an open source software and hardware company based out in New York City, but I work remotely for them. I am in Seattle, so it's not always sunny here, but today's a nice sunny day. And I worked remotely for them for like 5 years now. It'll be 6 in August, which is pretty wild. And I've worked on CircuitPython the whole time. CircuitPython is a version of Python designed for microcontrollers, which are little, tiny, and I'll use my, since somebody was admiring the camera here, this is product mode. And now if I go like this, it will show. So this is an ESP32C3 development board. And this is the S3 development board that I have on my desk. And these are microcontrollers. So underneath the metal tin here, there's a little chip. And that is where the microcontroller is. It's a little tiny computer. This particularly, the S3 can do both Wi-Fi and BLE, which is pretty neat, Bluetooth Low Energy. And so CircuitPython was designed to run on these products that have native USB in particular, although we're expanding that to include native BLE as well. So it's a great way to get started programming. It's super close to the metal, which is like how computers actually work. So it's a great way to learn. That's what Adafruit and CircuitPython are. If you want to chat with me and a lot of others, this middle box here is the Adafruit Discord server, particularly the live broadcast chat channel. So chat with me and a lot of others all year long, all week long. There it doesn't go away like YouTube chat does and stuff. So if you want to join that, you can go to the URL adafru.it/discord, and you'll join us there in the chat. This is a deep dive. It happens every week, normally Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific, but occasionally I was doing it on Thursday, although I don't really do that anymore. Typically goes for 2 hours or more, depending on if I'm in the middle of something. And questions are welcome. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. There's a lot of knowledgeable folks in the chat as well, and they can help answer questions too. So if you have those, go ahead and just drop them in. Those of you who've watched a deep dive before know that it kind of tends to wander a little bit, and we discuss topics as they come up. Last up, all notes are available on GitHub. There's a deep dive notes repo under the Adafruit organization. And what you can do is you could search that repo for all the back catalog of deep dives to see how I do different things. It's a great resource. So thank you to Patrick for putting that repo together, and in particular, adding the links straight into the videos, which is super cool. Because the videos are super long, but you can time code them. So that's pretty neat. And then, of course, David DCD takes notes pretty much every week. So thank you, David. My note-taking skills are much less useful. So thanks again. I didn't say hi to Bruce yet. I saw Bruce come in. So hello, Bruce. A number of folks in the chat are talking about how cold it is where they are, but today is not particularly cold here. So we did have, was it earlier in January, I guess? We had about a week of like pretty cold weather, but not down to 0 Fahrenheit. Pierre's going to go on a walk on the lake, so that's pretty cold. We don't have that here. All right. I guess the last thing I could say is if you are interacting in the chat and you find that the YouTube is a little laggy, we do have YouTube on the normal latency setting, which means that you get the auto captions, which is awesome and why I do it. But if you do not need the auto captions and want to have a shorter latency, go ahead and switch over to Twitch. And Twitch, I think, tends to be a bit quicker. So twitch.tv/Adafruit has the same stream. Okay. I think that's all the housekeeping, and I haven't seen any questions. If you have questions, of course, ask them. That's totally cool. But I thought we would do similar to what we were doing last week. So last week we went over all of the CircuitPython 2021 posts, and I thought we'd cover CircuitPython 22 posts this week, even though we're not like completely finished with that. I hope more people will continue to send those in. So let me recap what it is. So every year I like to do kind of more longer term annual planning. Hello, MD Roberts 1243. So we do this longer annual planning for CircuitPython, and we tend to call it like #CircuitPython and then the new year. So we're in the middle of doing CircuitPython 2022, and last year we did 21, and we've done 2020 and 2019. 2019 was a little bit different. But if you want, you can go back and look at all of those kind of historical things that we thought kind of at the annual level. I did do a deep dive last year that went over, I think it was last year's that I went over all the way back. But this year, the one we did last week only covered 2021. Yeah, so thank you, Mark. Mark was the last person to email. So if you do post, and the way that you can tell us what you want to do, we want to hear like the projects you're interested that you can't do in CircuitPython, features, but really like features need to be in service of something. So we want to hear what you want to be able to do in CircuitPython that you can't currently do. And so the way that you can tell us is you can post it on your blog, you can post a gist, you can post on the forums, you can leave a comment, and then to let us know that you did that so that I will reblog it on the Adafruit blog, you email circuitpython2022@adafruit.com. And I'll see that and I'll say thank you and then post it on the blog. And I keep kind of a running list of things that have been posted. So on the latest blog, you'll see all of the past entries as well. Good afternoon, Gary. So that's what CircuitPython 2021 to whatever is. And last week we covered 21. So I want to cover 22. And I wrote mine syllabus? Ron, syllabus? Not sure what you're asking, but hello. So I thought I'd cover mine first. So I'll pull that up. I posted it this week. I posted it yesterday. Deep dive review of CircuitPython 21 notes. I buried the lead a little bit in this. So if you want to follow along, I'll put the tag here. I'll cover mine and then we can cover... I know the auto sticker thing is really annoying. I do smileys with like a colon dash capital D, and like for some reason it has me do like head bang desk. And it's just like, I thought I turned the sticker stuff off. It's really annoying. Like the animated icon. Outline for the... Oh, yeah. It's kind of a syllabus for the coming year. Yeah, I think that's a good way to think of it. Hello, Thomas. Yeah, it's always up to subject to change because in a time where there's no chip shortage, we try to follow kind of like chip availability. And like some days you'll just hear from a manufacturer that they've got this new chip coming out and it's awesome. And we have to decide whether we want to put resources to supporting it. The last major thing we did was the RP 2040, just over a year now. So yeah, I don't know of anything like that this year, and I feel like it's died down a little bit given the chip shortage. So I kind of buried the leads. This is my post. I buried the lead, but the major thing that's happening for me this year is that I'm going to be out a bunch. I'm going to be out a bunch because we're having a kid. So we're expecting a baby at the end of March. So not too long from now, which is super exciting. I'm very excited. Getting some congrats, and we'll miss you. Yeah, so what you'll see here is that so what my year is looking like is it's January, middle of January now. We're expecting a kiddo at the end of March. So I've got about 2 months or so until I'm out. So I'm going to take 6 weeks off, starting when the baby's born or around there. I'm going to try, before the baby's born, I'm going to try to switch to like bug hunting mode. Thank you all. Yeah, scary too. Yeah. Taking some classes. We've got some folks to help us, so we're excited about it. Microcontroller for diaper state detection. It crossed my mind actually, because we were talking about doing talking about doing cloth diapers, and my sister's been using disposables for her kids, and they have these like blue lines on them. So it did cross my mind of like, you know how Adafruit sells those like the plant soil detectors? Like just put that on the back of your kid to detect the moisture. So yeah, so the plan is that I got about 2 months until I'm out, and then I'm taking 6 weeks off, and my wife will be taking 6 weeks off at that time too. And then we're going to take, then I'm going to come back to work, and that's going to be like a 12-week period where I'm going to probably pick up one big thing, or I might just do bug hunting. We'll see. And then when she goes back to work after those 12 weeks, then I'm going to take 12 weeks off as well. So I'll kind of be out April, like extended April. And then it's looking like, depending on the due date or when the baby's actually born, it's like mid-August through the end of October is like when I'm out-ish. Folknology says you don't need detectors, believe me. Yeah, thank you. We'll figure it out. Disposables all the way. Well, yeah, we're gonna try cloth because we live in the city and we can pay people to clean them and rent them and everything. So we're gonna give that a try. Just doing the diaper service. Okay, so that's the big thing that's critical to planning kind of my involvement in CircuitPython this year. So my hope is that in the next so it gets less and less clear the later in the year we talk about, but at the start of the year, it's going to be ESP work. So I've already switched gears from Broadcom into the ESP world, and made some progress today on it, which is awesome. Not really because of me, but because of Ivan's help. And Paul says, my wife and I did cloth for our last 2 kids. I recommend it. It was way better than I expected. My parents did cloth with me as well. My sister lives not in the city and does disposables, but we'll see. Your nose will help you know. Beware of unusual bugs. My wife screwed up and delivered 8 weeks early. Yeah. So we've got 10 weeks until the baby's due date. So yeah, it's totally possible that these plans get shifted. 10 poll. That's clever, Drew. Okay, so my goal, BLE on ESP by the time I'm out. That's my goal. So I think next week I'm going to be starting on BLE on the ESPs, which is super exciting, and it might just go smoothly. I don't know. We'll see. Mark says the important thing is to worry about the baby family number 1, and everyone else will keep CircuitPython going while you're busy. Yes, I didn't actually say that, but I wrote that. I've always had these kind of 2 sort of themes. Save for college law. Yep, we're starting to think about that too. So yeah, and in my blog post here that you can't see because I wasn't showing it, I kind of have had these 2 focuses, community and BLE workflow for a while. And so the way that community, I frame it in my posts is that the CircuitPython community is amazing. And I already took like short breaks over Christmas for the holidays and stuff, and I know that the community can run without me, and I worked to get to that point. I've not been a critical piece of this community for a while. I think we've done a good job of finding people that can keep it going. So thank you to everybody who does that. And yeah, like Mark points out, like we're gonna, like Mark included, they'll help keep it going. So I I know that's going to be the case. CircuitPython is like going really well, so it's nothing's going to happen to CircuitPython. I do want to say, and I wrote this up, that I don't think deep dives are going to continue. At least I'm leaving that as a possibility. So these streams will basically go through February, assuming the baby doesn't come super early. And then after that, like Foamy Guy's been doing a great job covering kind of this time slot. So maybe Foamy Guy will do that. But I don't necessarily want to commit to when I return at the in May. I don't necessarily want to say that I'm going to be doing deep dives because I don't know how much time I'm actually going to have, because I will still be here and there will be a baby here as well. And then also, I don't necessarily think that these deep dives are the top priority for my time for Adafruit. So it'll be a discussion with them. It might turn more into like a random hackers sorts of thing. But we have the deep divers role in Discord. I'd be happy to like ping people there if I ever think I'm going to be doing streams. But yeah, we'll see. Things are going to change a lot. And so I'm kind of just like, once the baby's here, it's kind of like, we'll see. Drew says, planning that far in the future is just too much uncertainty calculation. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I think. So, tangent. All the puns, it's good. When I picked the name Tannewt, I never saw those coming. Hello, Andrew. I didn't say hi to you yet. I'm sure there's people I didn't say hi to. Andrew, Emeb, on Discord. Yeah, I mean, there's still going to be lots of cool things. So, Kid has already got nicknames. Ron says, new to microcontrollers, what's the difference? Difference from Arduino, what is the difference from ESP? So Espressif is a manufacturer of microcontrollers known for Wi-Fi stuff. Arduino is kind of a platform or a software system and API on top of that, that is like a C++ sort of thing. And then CircuitPython is also built on top of microcontrollers, but is Python instead. So it's a more beginner-friendly, interpreted all on the microcontroller experience, rather than where with Arduino, what you would do is like write on your computer your C code and then compile it and then upload it to the microcontroller. I think that's maybe the question you got. Patrick says you can get back to those drone projects and track your kiddo. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm pretty over drones. I discovered embedded hardware. That was the problem. K-Match has a question about CircuitPython hardware testing for displays. It would be nice to query a display to verify the display is showing what you expect. Is there a concept where the host device running CircuitPython could tell the peripheral display to dump its contents, and a separate validation of code peripheral device could read that dump and compare it with a known good output? This could be used to debug code issues with the revision changes and also debug any communications issues. For example, to identify the one glitch that was observed by too high of a display speed bus. Typically on displays, the output that would allow you to read stuff is not connected. So generally you can only write to displays. I think the better option if you wanted to do automated testing would be to write to another microcontroller and have that microcontroller pretend to be a display. Is probably more worthwhile. We were actually just talking about, Lamore just came up with a similar idea to doing that. Foamy Guy points out that there's the BitmapSaver library. So this is asking display IO what it thinks the image is. So you'd use that, and then CPython code running on the PC can use the pill to compare it with the known good copies of the image. Yeah, so if you're worried about display IO, then you could do that. Yep. Micah says, baby will get a lot of ESP32s as a present. Yeah. God, I'm getting all sorts of ESPs. I just saw in the UF2 repo, they just added an ID for an ESP32C2 as well, which is interesting. Yeah, that solves composition but not transmission issues. Yeah, it's true. I think if you really wanted to test transmission, you'd be doing what K-Match is talking about, of like reading it back out. That's pretty hard. Sound reactive sunflower baby crib mobile with Bluetooth control. You all think that I do projects. I don't really do. I'm finding that the projects I do outside of work are not embedded related. They're usually, right now, it's a lot of like, I've been doing a lot of just like data scraping and data analysis stuff more in Python more than embedded stuff as my hobby. It's like way easier coding. That's why. Like I can write a 50-line thing to scrape data and do something with it. The ESP has Wi-Fi and Python. Python is easy to read. I think Python's easy to read. Python relies more on white space and less on random symbols, which I think is really beneficial for newcomers. And you can use the Wi-Fi from Python. String parsing for a better world. Yeah. Unexpected Maker's prediction is by the end of 2023, Espressif will have 999 SKUs of MCUs and modules. How many do they have now? It might be that much already. Ogre Drew says, I mean, you do your 40-ish a week on bending embedded stuff to your will. Got to have a little bit of variety. Yeah, exactly. Totally. Thomas says you should look into woodworking. I don't have the space for woodworking. I know that. I don't have the space for embedded electronics. And a kid. Crimson Ether says, I have an Arduino Leonardo-type board with built-in Bluetooth. I want to build a Bluetooth Macropad, but I can't find any documentation that helps me. Do you know where I can go to find this? I don't know much about the Arduino Leonardo Macropad, unfortunately. I don't. I know in CircuitPython we have human interface device HID support that would allow you to do Macropad type stuff, but not with that board. You would need like an NRF 52840 board for that instead, or once we get this other stuff going, then ESP chips with BLE would work too. Yeah, CircuitPython project work might feel too much like regular work, needs something else. Yeah, the thing that I really want to get back to, and after I take a break, I want to do more embedded stuff. I still really would like to do USB host on the Pi 400. So let me scroll down. So BLE workflow is going to be huge at the start of this year. We want to bring more platforms to it. We've got FileGlider and PyLeap in the App Store now, and then we have code.circuitpython.org as well. So bringing the ESP ecosystem into the BLE workflow stuff should be a big boost for that. Yeah, Pierre says Leonardo Bluetooth might be like a Pro Micro plus an extra module for BLE, not ideal. Drew says, I'm 90% sure there's an Arduino BT HID library out there, but I do not remember where it is or its requirements. A good hobby is reading with your kids. kid. I used to read to my niece and fall asleep during some bear story. Yeah, I plan on doing that. I'm excited. We already got kids' books, and we're getting more. Yeah, I'm excited to be a parent. I've always thought I would be, so I'm excited. It's good. So yeah, things that I still want to do. USB host is something I'd really still like to do. I would love to have the Pi 400 be a self-contained CircuitPython box. I think that'd be really cool. So I still want to do that. The USB audio and video I think would be really neat. So being able to put like send audio and video up the USB link. So if I was working on something, I could stream it just over USB. It would act like a webcam basically. I think async networking, I don't think I'm going to be the person to do this, but now that we have async IO turned on and kind of like validated, it would be great to have like networking basics that were all async IO so that you could do network stuff and other stuff at the same time. So I think that I wouldn't be surprised if like Dan took that on. Testing, K-Match brought this up earlier, but more generally, I think we are seeing a lot of regressions in CircuitPython now, and I was kicking, I meant to do this. What I'd like to do is I want to track how many bugs that we fix are regressions. So a regression I would define as like something that used to work that no longer works. And those are the things that tests are really great for preventing, or at least finding quickly so you can fix them again. No, I don't want a new issue. I want a new label. So I'm just going to do this right now. Things that used to work don't any longer. And sure, it could be neon green. So yeah, I would like to start tracking this just to see like how much we're missing. That's here. It's kind of a holy grail. I've worked on it. Sommersoft has worked on it. It's really hard. It's really hard, especially when you're wanting to do things like what K-Match is talking about, of like validating the hardware itself. So yeah. Sorry. I could turn away from my old mic, but this mic is attached to me, so hopefully it wasn't too loud. Pierre says, automated testing of embedded stuff is not trivial. 100%. Hams Lab says, I got my sister to watch this. I'm getting her started using a Circuit Playground Express. Maybe say hi to Jane for me. Hello, Jane. Thank you for watching. Is that the same Jane that was in the YouTube chat? Welcome to CircuitPython. There's lots of folks on the Discord that would be happy to help you get going if you need it. Keithy EE says, reflexively says, bless you, and confusing my partner in the other room. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, so that was my CircuitPython 2022. Basically, I'm hoping to do BLE workflow on ESPs, and then kind of like we'll see after that. The other we'll see is that like we could have new chips be announced and be available that we didn't know that were coming before. So, hello, Rich. Patrick says, have you seen that the regressions are board or port specific, or are they general regressions? I would say that they're generally port specific. General regressions, there's not a ton of code. Maybe that's not true. Most of the code that's shared amongst all ports is the Python stuff, and the Python stuff's really well tested because of what the MicroPython folks have done for testing it. The things that I'm thinking of are, for example, like PDM stopped working on SAMD, and I think Pulse in and out are not working on SAMD as well. So we say, like, people will say, I got this Circuit Playground Express and this thing no longer works. And it's like, with the PDM in, Dan like fixed it, and he was like, oh, I don't think it hasn't worked since CircuitPython 5, and now we're on 7, and probably going to be 8 at some point too. Mr. Dalgard says, I'm hoping non-I devices will get some love for BLE workflows. I've been unable to get code.circuitpython.org working on either Android or PC. Yeah, I think there's some bugs with code.circuitpython.org that I'd love to see fixed. I would love to see code.circuitpython.org also support USB, which it totally could do. But I had a meeting with Antonio. So Antonio is a contractor that Adafruit. Welcome, Jane. So Antonio is a contractor that Adafruit works with, and he does both Android and iOS. And so we were discussing, so he's going to look at this week to see what it would take to kind of update some of the older Android stuff. And then I'm going to chat with Phil and decide if like that's where Phil wants Antonio to go, is the Android app side of things. So it's an option. But I'm really hoping that like with the BLE workflow stuff, I want to see people really experiment as well. I don't just want to see only Adafruit supported stuff. Like it's an open protocol, and I would love to see people experiment with how to edit stuff. Patrick says, maybe the community can identify port champions, or maybe the chip manufacturers can step in here who would test ports. To some degree, I feel like that's what we do. Like Gerry is really valuable to CircuitPython because Gerry tests a lot. But there's other folks that do tests as well. I think that I think we do that. I think we are already relying on folks to do our tests for us. That's a nice thing. Like you can kind of think of learn guides as like the learn guides are kind of also test cases, right? Like, and that's kind of that's also what Adafruit like says they support. Like we support the learn guides that are marked as active. So I think it's hard to be comprehensive, I think, is the challenge. If you're doing it manually, it's just really hard to be comprehensive. I think that that's the challenge. I think that's why automation's really nice. Automation's both comprehensive in testing every commit, and it's also comprehensive in that like you can get it really broad, like you can cover everything. And the way that I like to do testing, I'm not very good at testing, but the model I like to introduce testing is when you find a bug, you create a test for it, and then you fix it. You see that it's broken, the test is broken, and then you fix it. Keith the EE says, do you have an automated hardware testing repo or repos from your prior attempts? I do, and then sommersoft definitely does as well. I don't know those off the top of my head, so can I get back to you on that? The one that I did was called Rosie-ci, and you can see it's like 2017, so it was 5 years ago. And it ran on a Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi had a bunch of stuff that was like USB to it, but the USB was not reliable. And so like, that's really hard. Actually, this is something I was thinking it would be another reason to do USB host, is that part of the unreliability with this original version was that the USB host stack on Linux would get messed up, and then you kind of like, you gotta go like restart the computer. But if we had USB host in CircuitPython, we could have like a fixed version of CircuitPython with USB host testing another board with a varying version of CircuitPython, which I think is interesting, but it would work. Strangelit says, this is fantastic. Thank you. And then let's see if we can find, so sommersoft also did a lot of work, and I never took the time to fully understand it, unfortunately. Rosie-ci is what he was calling it. Summerbot. That's clever. RosiePi. Oh, he has a whole organization for Rosie-ci. Whoa. And a website. I'll link this in. So I would, yeah, check that out. Okay, there's more questions. Let me get to them. Ron says, so using Python to develop an API for the ESP family of hardware. Yes. Yep. Yeah, so CircuitPython already has support for the ESP32S2. And it looks basically like what I held up earlier. And if you missed it, here's an example. This is an ESP32S3. The S3 adds BLE support, which is cool. And then I also have a C3. And then at some point, I think we'd like to support the older ESP32. We have no plans on doing the 8266, but the ESP32 can do BLE, which is interesting. Pierre asked, is there anything that Gerry does other people could easily replicate for testing? I think it's just what Gerry does is Gerry has a lot of different projects that he works on and he updates them regularly. And so that's, and this is an interesting contrast, right? Like the benefit of doing it this way is we test the things people use. And if people don't use them, they don't get tested, they may break, but it doesn't matter because people don't use them. Which is kind of like why I get a little scared when people want to use CircuitPython in a product. But, you know, it's really on them to make sure that it's okay. Oh, Zarlin asked, what is the timeline for ESP32 S3 support, S3 Arduino support? And the answer is I don't know. The Arduino ESP support is done by Espressif, but I imagine that it's pretty similar, so I would expect it to actually be there now. But I don't know. I haven't looked. I don't use Arduino. Ogre Drew says, hey Scott, I've got a hopefully simple-ish Raspberry Pi CircuitPython bare metal question for you. Are the Pi 3 and or the Pi 400 on the map? So the Pi 3 Model B it uses the USB peripheral that we're using for host and doesn't make it available for device, if I remember right. The Pi 3A Plus doesn't have those host ports, and so it should work. If you wanted to try it, you could just put the 02W build on the Pi 3, and it probably would just work. The Pi 400 is kind of in the same boat, where it doesn't make the USB device connection that available. It might be on the USB-C. I haven't looked. But if you want, you could just try another 4 build on it, and it's probably okay. So I would like, USB host is on my radar because USB host would enable Pi 400 to have the keyboard input into CircuitPython, which I think would be really cool and kind of like a third workflow. But there are still a few bugs in the Broadcom stuff. There's freezes that happen, and I just I couldn't find them when I looked before, and I was just sick of it. So I'm gonna keep in this ESP vein for a little while longer. I think this BLE stuff, if I'm lucky, it's actually gonna go pretty smoothly. Maybe I'm jinxing myself, but I don't think it's out of the question that I could have like the BLE workflow working like the end of next week. Because in theory it all works. It's just that I've got to connect the CircuitPython APIs into the ESP IDF APIs. So yeah. Oh, now I am. Oh, lots of great questions. Thank you, folks. Todd Cox says, any pointers / examples of OTA update of CircuitPython devices? I don't know, but I would encourage you to join the Discord server. Let me switch back to here. There's a couple of people that have been thinking about this. I think it depends a little bit on what you mean, whether you want to update the CircuitPython firmware itself. If you want to do that, there's a dual bank module that MicroDev added that allows you to write to the other bank and switch to it. I haven't tested it myself, and kind of the way that Adafruit supports stuff. So most of the, well, as far as I know, all the paid development of CircuitPython is paid for by Adafruit. So those of us that are paid by Adafruit support particular things. And the things that we support are the things that you can find in Learn Guides. And I don't know of an OTA Learn Guide that we've done yet. The other thing that you could think about OTAing is the files in CircuitPython. And there's this set next code file function on supervisor that allows you to say like, hey, actually, next time I run, don't run code.py, run something else. And depending on what code.py does, do this or that thing. So that's the other option. But I don't know really good examples for either of them. Okay, I'm getting behind. People are chatting. Dylan says, do you have any thoughts on doing simulated hardware tests? I don't believe that it could be a complete replacement, but from what I think I understand, it could fill some gaps. I worry with any simulated hardware that the simulation does not represent the hardware. So like, I know there's the thing that's mostly FPGA. I forget what it's called. Some online service that does emulation. And I just don't trust it to be like the hardware. I think it's built on QEMU, and I think like one thing I noticed doing Raspberry Pi stuff is like QEMU doesn't do like all the like checking that the hardware will do. So OTA, Ron asks, sorry, what is OTA? It's short for over the air. And sorry, I didn't say that earlier. The idea being like updating your software on a device via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth would be OTA. Hi, Ardarsanal. Bruce linked to an issue for the Arduino ESP32S3 support. It says it's just around the corner. Oh, Ogre Drew says Pi 400C port works for gadget mode, I think. Yeah, that sounds awesome. So if it does work that way, maybe I should have tried it. But just throw the firmware for the Pi 4B on there and just see if it works. And then we can make a separate board definition for it. Unexpected Maker says S3 and Arduino has not even started on the publicly facing commits. Maybe work has started internally and they'll just dump a bunch of stuff, but they are still working on more solid IDF support right now. And says they didn't say what corner it's coming around. Bruce points out that S2 isn't working great in Arduino either. Well, I think that's all the more reason to use CircuitPython, but that's my bias. And you might say, oh, it's not working, S3 is not working very well in CircuitPython. Well, I checked the PRs, I changed a couple things today. Kmart says, this would only replicate what CircuitPython thinks is displayed on the screen. What about knowing if there's a bus error? It's just the challenge of interacting with hardware, I think. Oh, K-Match is not watching the stream. Unexpected Maker says, I know not a priority, but any more thoughts on allowing other file system access to the OTA partitions if folks want, or a way to disable OTA to reclaim more flash space for those that want it? I think it's, I think it should be a bootloader discussion. That's what I think. I think that for folks that you load CircuitPython over tinyUF2, tinyUF2 can be, that code can be anywhere. So if we were going to make a non-OTA-able version, so for those, let me take one step back. So what Unexpected Maker is referring to is the way that over-the-air updates tend to work is that you basically save twice as much space for your firmware. So you're running one set of firmware and it's downloading a version and then it's loading it into a second place in the flash. And then what you do is you restart and say, oh, next time run this other version. But that takes a lot of space on the flash, especially because the builds are like a megabyte a piece. And if you have 4 megabytes of flash, you're using half or even more than half just for firmware versions. I would say open an issue on the tinyUF2. That's what I would say. Because CircuitPython itself respects the partition table. The only reason that we have partition tables ourselves is because those are for the builds that work without the tinyUF2 bootloader part. Is OTA strictly an ESP feature? Not strictly, but it's common with Wi-Fi, and it gets really tricky if you're talking about using it as the coprocessor. Hogurdur says downloading cackles with glee. Yeah, there's not a lot between all the different versions of the Pi boards, so you could try that. Apparently there's an Espresso Discord channel. Rich says, I had a patent related to semantics live update, which is one of the very first over-the-wire update mechanisms in the 90s. Nice. Oh, interesting. That's a cool chart. Bruce, where did you find that chart? The following table shows ESP IDF support of Espressif SOCs, a system on chips. We are on version 4.4. Sorry, I'm getting caught up. There's a non-official Espressif Discord server. I have a bad habit of just DMing somebody I know DMing on Twitter somebody I know at Espressif. Ivan's been super helpful. Let me just cover that since we're talking about it. Let's switch to the back to the desktops. Unexpected Maker, DM me the invite link you just sent and I'll post it. How does one tell official from non-official Discord channels? One of the mods can post the invite to you. I'm pretty sure I can post it. Okay, let's switch to the desktop. Let me show you. So I guess what I should also point out is that I wrote a Learn guide, which I don't do that often, but I started it in December on the stream, and then I actually finished it. So if you go to Learn and look at new guides, there's this CircuitPython on Raspberry Pi, and this should hopefully get you started. Now, I said that there are bugs, but this will get you started with CircuitPython on the Raspberry Pi. So let me know how that goes. If you have any way to replicate the bugs, please post an issue, because part of the reason the existing bugs are so hard is because they are because I don't know how to replicate them quickly. So yeah, finish that, and that was the last thing I wanted to do. I'm not going to look at this feedback right now, but this was the last thing I wanted to do before switching over to the Espressif stuff. So I showed, I guess this is, yeah, so I have the ESP I have the ESP dev boards here on my desk, and the new versions for the S3 are great because they have 2 USB plugs, one for the direct connection to the chip and one for the USB serial converters. Bugs or dragons, or have the dragons been slayed already? How long will each session last? So these streams last 2 hours, so we got about an hour left, if that's what you're talking about. That's why I can answer all these questions. Okay, so I switched to the Espresso stuff, and I discovered a thing where if you do menuconfig, it was dumping a bunch of garbage in the config files. So I fixed that, and then there is this bug. This one right here that nobody's reviewed, but it's passed all the tests. This is a fixed bug when enabling Wi-Fi. There was this outstanding issue that Jeff had filed in December that basically says when you import Wi-Fi, USB stops, which is not great. And then Dan said S3 box has the same problem, and then Retired Wizard was doing some debugging. Thank you, Retired Wizard. And figured out that it was this ESP Wi-Fi start call. And then I bugged Ivan, who works for Espressif, and he was like, this sounds familiar. I think we fixed this. I glanced at what they had done, and I didn't see anything. And then I filed an issue today, and Ivan got immediately back to me on that issue and said, oh, like, I think when we backported the fix from their 5.0 version, which is like their latest stuff that they're working on, to 4.4, which is what we use. So I think when we did that, we messed it up. Try changing this one line. I changed the one line, rebuilt it, and it worked, which is great. So I have this issue, or not this issue, but this pull request open. I think Jeff is gone. I don't think... folks of you, I'm sure somebody watching here can approve this PR for me. That would be awesome. It's like a very small change. It's just changing like, well, I'll just show you. So this line here, so there's this ESP PHY enable USB, which says when you turn on Wi-Fi, turn on USB as well. And it was using this USB OTG supported thing, but that is a refactor they did for 5.0. They don't have that in 5. So instead what you do is you just say like, oh, if you're doing S2 or S3, which is interesting. I think this might actually mean to be C3. Well, no, C3 wouldn't make sense. Yeah, S2 or S3. And then it's just a one-line change. I mean, people will test it anyway. Mike asks, do you have the ESP32S3 dev kit C N8R8 yet? I got one, but it has Octal PSRAM, so builds online don't work yet. Hope it becomes a build target. I do not, I don't think. I don't think I picked up. This one's an N8R2. This one is a N8. And then this is a C3. Let me look. You know how I know whether I ordered it? I go to Adafruit and then I see. Oh, I've got to sign in. Let me sign in off screen. So you can't snag my 2-factor code. I was gonna not log in, but then I realize I need to be logged in so it can tell me whether I purchased it or not. Okay. So Let's dev kit C. The 881, it's not in stock anymore, unfortunately. And I didn't order it. So if we click this one, it'll tell me I ordered it. I was trying not to get them all. I didn't realize that the Octal RAM thing was different. Mike, are you not the person that just changed the support for it? Because if you looked a few days ago, I just merged in a change that I think the person who merged it in tried to get it working. So if we go in Espressif boards, they tweaked how to number it. And so you can see there's an N8R8 build now, which purple's merged in. Tested on the N8R8, it passes the basic NeoPixel blinking test. So it should work. Give it a shot. Mention a two-factor code reminds me to warn you about, you may rely on those backup codes when you get a new phone. Well, when I got this new phone, I switched to Authy, which is it's actually logged in, so you can log into Authy to get access to all of them on a different device, I think, which is pretty cool. Oh, Neradox says it worked, and Zarlin says it worked on it as well. So it sounds like it works. Mark did the review for me. So let's go back and merge it in. I knew people would be excited about this. Like, it's not going to break anything. It's fine. If somebody wants to DM me the link to the Espressif one, I should be able to put it in the Discord chat. Neon Dream says Authy's the way to go. I agree. It's been wonderful. You can actually, you can have it on desktop too, but I don't end up using that. I did actually test the Wi-Fi, so I do know the Wi-Fi actually works. Does the website not? So it's possible that the downloads page hasn't been updated for the renaming. Yeah, it hasn't. I should update that. Let me show you how to find it. So if you go to, actually, if you're on here and you click here, and then you go down to this browse S3 for absolute newest. S3 is in Amazon S3, not ESP. What you'll see here is that the board name is here. If you go bin and then find the board here, you can see the newer versions are here. So I'll just link you to that. So that's how you can get the newest builds. Oh, and you're ahead of me. Ron asks, what is Authy? So Authy is an app by Twilio that is for phones and desktops, and it manages those two-factor authentication codes. I'll show you. Let me pull one up that doesn't really matter. My NVIDIA account. So here's an example. Oh, let me switch. So this is Authy. So it shows you like the number that you would type in as two-factor, and then it lets you like select which one you want to look at. Yeah. If you want to log into my NVIDIA account, then so be it. Oh, there's the link. No problem. I should be able to post it. Oh, I'm not even in it. Let me join it. I'll complete the steps later. And I'll post it on the YouTube as well. Discord's great. And Espresso's been good too. Okay, so that's exciting. That's merged in, so people should be able to do Wi-Fi on the S3 now. And then I reworked, maybe I should show this. I reworked the files a little bit. So there's the way that ESP-IDF, which is the manufacturer-provided software library, is configured is through a system that also the Linux kernel uses, called kconfig. And it uses these SDK files to store all of the values. In CircuitPython, we try to, instead of having one big configuration for every board that's independent, we try to factor out the common things so that boards are similar, right? Like we want as little variation from board to board as possible because it means that we can like support the whole group of boards kind of all in one go because we know they're pretty uniform. But now we've reworked our Espresso port. It used to only be for the ESP32S2, which is the first board that we supported recently. But now with the S3 and the C3, we've kind of like started broadening it again. And MicroDev did a lot of this work. Thank you, MicroDev. But this is me reorganizing the kconfig stuff to factor in the target as well. So we have a generic set of settings that are for all the boards. And then we have two different options. We have a like optimized version and a debug version of those configs. So the things that change will be in two files there. And then we have different kconfigs for every flash size because that changes partition table stuff. And then I added another dimension, which is like what target it is. And that's what, oh, I'm not showing it. So that's what you can see here. And maybe let me make it a bit bigger. So the change here is that like in the list of configs, so this is where it looks for defaults. It starts with the generic file, adds the debug or not debug, the flash version, and then the target. So S3 versus S2 versus C3 versus ESP32 would kind of like change this setting. And then we used to have this fancy diff line that I had no idea what it did. So I was like, I'm just gonna write a Python script. So I added a Python script that allows you to say like, I wanna change the settings for my board. You go make board menuconfig, and then you can change your settings in the UI, and then the things that you change will go in the board specific config to do that. And then I also, that actually has a mode where it can update the other files as well. So this is just me tweaking some of these files. And I think it's at the bottom. So now you can see that there's like this SDK config ESP32 S3 defaults, opt defaults, that sort of stuff. And the way that it works is that in this update SDK config, we have like a list of like, these are the configs that go in this file or that file, and it kind of splits them out for you. So I did that, which should make menuconfig give you smaller changes, just the changes that you actually do. I also discovered that in ESP-IDF 5, they have a new command that allows you to write out a defaults file that only has the values you changed from the defaults of the IDF, which is great, and we should do that once we get there. We're not there yet, but once we get there. And then we have one other pull request open, I think, which is this switch CircuitPython to core 1 on the S3. So The ESP32S3 has 2 cores, and basically what we want is one of those cores will run all the network stuff, and then CircuitPython will run kind of like how it would normally run on a board that doesn't have network on the other core. So CircuitPython and the USB stack will run on the second core as of this change. So yeah, I have that going as well. And the next thing for me to do is I think I just want to get into BLE land, because that's the like major task that I want to do. I don't know of any large ESP issues besides that import Wi-Fi bug. So I think it's BLE time, and I was debating whether I'm going to start it after the stream or I'm just going to procrastinate and do it next week. We'll see. Some kid from Britain says the snake in the thumbnail is cute. Thank you, some kid from Britain. The snake's name is Blinka. It's the mascot of CircuitPython, which is what we're kind of talking about. I like Jeff's PR that says, are these files even used? Continuous integration testing is really great. We don't have great tests, but we do build all the boards now. Grokt. Ron says Grokt. Is it slang? It is slang. It's slang for understood. And it comes from a sci-fi book that I don't remember. It is kind of like a term. It's like jargon kind of as well. It's jargon within like the software world as well. Like Grokt is kind of like something I picked up when I went to college and learned software stuff. Unexpected maker. Ooh. Was that super loud? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, people can't see you.
They can or they cannot?
They can't because I haven't popped you out yet.
Okay.
Surprise, everyone.
Hi. Wait, I can't see you, so I have to do a thing. Hold on. Another window.
Turn on my camera. I don't think it worked with sharing.
Doesn't. I have to like watch you in a YouTube so I can see what you're doing. And then I have to mute it because it's like so confused. Okay, cool.
I can't see your camera. I could briefly.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Hold on. It says
folks should be able to hear you.
Preview camera. Preview camera seems to turn on camera. Turn on camera? Turn on camera. Turn on?
I'm getting the we totally like surprised people. Everybody thought they were getting Discord calls.
Weird. It's not
Oh, it's not happening.
I see me.
I saw you briefly and then it went away.
Do you want me to retry?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
and beware, everybody, you'll hear the ring again because I have the desktop audio on. Or I can leave it open. Phil says, still on Travis. No, we're on GitHub Actions at this point.
That's a shame.
Huh.
Being funky.
That's weird. Are you using the app?
I'm using the web browser. What about that?
Ooh, what is that? It's not cooperating with me. It could be me.
I don't know. It says I'm screen sharing.
Yeah, I tried to click into it and I'm just, oh. I saw it in the preview. What the heck? It could be me.
You're on Fire. Wait. You're in the app.
I'm in the app, and then the
Wow,
stream
look at
version
that.
is
It's just totally not into it, huh?
like
Well,
I
do you think I should use the app too? I don't know.
I like the app. Are you in Firefox or in Chrome?
Chrome.
Well, Chrome should work. I
Well, how
don't
about
know.
I'll download the app and I'll see if I don't think it's gonna make a difference, but
All right. We can
okay.
chat. We can chat just over audio because I know
Okay.
folks can hear you. If
Yes. Happy New Year, everybody.
do you want to do that now, or do you want to try the app first?
You can do it now, and I'll download the app in the
Okay.
background.
All right. Well, I'm gonna put.
It's gonna be a thing.
I'll put myself big then. Great,
Thanks, Scott.
folks. Folks can hear you. Rufus and Web BSK said the term grok is from Stranger in a Strange Land.
It is.
I had somebody
Why like what?
I said it. I said it when I was talking about something, and Ron's in the YouTube chat and asking lots of really good questions, and asked whether grok was slang. So
It is. It's sci-fi nerd slang.
but I think it's definitely infiltrated like the software world too.
Yeah, no, it came probably from Mitzvahs, the MIT Science Fiction Society. They picked up a bunch of Heinlein words and used them in, nerd linguistics, and it sort of like emanated from there, I think.
Do you have any other examples of words that I may use that I don't realize come from that?
Well, there's like, the standard like foobar
Mm.
and, yak shaving, ping, to ping someone. I mean, that's from, I'm pretty sure that comes from the Linux ping. I don't know. I will as I listen. Grok is it's interesting. Grok is not used by most nerds. You really probably hung out with some particularly crusty nerds to pick that one up.
I mean,
All right, Discord's open.
like UW is University of Washington is pretty like there's some folks that have been in the industry a long time that I
Okay,
learned some computer stuff from.
let me try to bump myself into the app.
Okay, I'll
So
I'll
go
close
away.
it on my side too because I left it open. Did Lady Ada just call me a particularly crusty nerd? I think she called all of us particularly crusty nerds. So I can see you in the thumbnail. Oh, and I can see you.
That it's not working.
I can't see you if I pop you out, which is weird.
Weird.
That's okay. If I pop it back in, I think.
And being small. I can be
How
small.
do I pop it back in? I think just close it. Oh dear. Discord crashed. Can you hear me? Okay.
No, yeah.
We'll just do it this way.
Okay. Anyways,
So
yeah, we worked on a bunch of hardware last week. I'm kind of tempted. I nerd snipe myself. I want to try the HDMI thing we were talking about.
Oh, good, because I know Jeff also said like, oh, I'm interested in this.
I totally know how to. So like Phil and I go on walks because like I have to like kind of like shake my brain out.
Yeah.
And we were talking about you did display I/O for HDMI for Raspberry Pi, and what we wanted to do is we wanted to like build a video synth because it's kind of one of the projects that I've wanted to build for a while because we were looking at this Aux box and we are like, oh, video synths are pretty cool. Oh,
Right.
hey, I'm small. So we were like, well, how do video synths work? And they pretty much all use Raspberry Pi. They just have like HDMI output. They're running Linux, not CircuitPython.
Right.
And you've wanted for a while to have HDMI output, and it's like every time I look and there's ways to get HDMI output from microcontroller, but it's like super inelegant. It's always like some weird ass FPGA thing. There is a we have the TFP 401, but that's like the TFP
410?
410 can take TFT and convert to HDMI, but it's like, okay, now you need like, 5,000 pins.
Right.
And so, the ideal is to have something that's got a frame buffer, and you just set the window of what rectangle you want to update it, and it'll just blit out the data.
Right.
And that's when I was like, oh, well, the Raspberry Pi can do it. It doesn't have a ton of RAM, but I could do 320 by 240, and then you could like double clock it. And then we're thinking like one core would do the HDMI generation, although I actually have to look at the Pico DVI example. I'm a little nervous that they use both cores.
I don't think they do.
I don't know.
My concern is actually like memory bandwidth. Like I'm not sure how much memory bandwidth they've got left over just piping the frame buffer from RAM to the PIO.
Well, you might not be able to update the frame buffer until the H-sync or V-sync pulse. So we're recreating the Atari 2600 here, which kind of sucks, but very small. But
it's kind of our theme for this year, I think, is retro stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can get some FPGAs, although none of them have enough memory. Like you need like a ton of memory.
Yeah.
And people would be like, well, the STM32F7. Yeah, okay. Well, I can't get STM32F7s for like 2 years. So you can't use those.
You got some Pi 4 modules in, I think. I had a friend who was waiting for them.
We did, so but excited. I want something that's very cheap, right? Yeah. I want something that we can toss on. So I'm going to experiment with it. And I agree that it's mostly the thing I was most worried about is when can you access the memory? Like sure, when it's HDMI blitting, it's HDMI blitting. Even though it's in a PIO, you're not going to get access to the memory. But I just don't know how the PIO works with like RAM access, and if we can it like buffer all your commands until the H-sync time, because it's the amount of you're going to be like blitting very, very quickly. I think it does like 30 or 60 frames per second, and there are enough gaps, and like you don't change what's on the display that often for the stuff we're doing. Anyways, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, so to recap for folks, ladyada asked me about this a few hours ago. The idea being that we could use an RP2040 to produce DVI signals that happen to be over an HDMI plug.
Yeah.
But those.
I'm not paying them $1,500.
Yes, but what you would be able to do is the interface to that chip would be treating it like a normal SPI TFT display. So you'd be able to take our stock standard CircuitPython code that shows up on a Pi portal and put in this chip that would convert that to HDMI instead, or DVI.
Yeah, DVI.
That was the idea, and I think it's a really neat idea. So yeah, and if you're talking to me in the Discord live broadcast chat, I can't see it, so heads up.
So somebody's like, well, you can use an ICE 40, but actually 128K is not enough. If you do the math,
if you want a frame buffer.
If you want a frame buffer, which you need, because the whole point of this is that you only access it when you need to change data. So you need 150K, because you need 320 by 240 times 2 bytes per pixel, which is 153.6K, or whatever. It does not fit in 128.
Yeah.
And that's why the Raspberry Pi Pico is kind of nice. It's got this like 256K, so you have even a little bit of room. You have a little bit extra room for your stack and stuff. And it's cheap as hell. It's $1.
Right.
So I think it's worth trying. And then if there's ever an RP20, I know the RP2040 can do much higher resolution, but of course it's dynamically generated, which we don't want.
Right.
But it would be cool to get 640 by 480, but then you need a megabyte of VRAM, and So anyways, I think 320 by 240 though is still a very nice resolution because again, you can pixel double it to 640 by 480, which is a standard HDMI resolution.
Right.
Almost all of our examples for display I/O is 320 by 240. It's kind of a nice chunky
I like that retro
resolution,
look.
and it's a retro look. But also, if you want to wire it up to like some sort of emulator type thing, then you would. Usually those are like NTSC or PAL output. Those fit within 320 by 240. So
right.
Even though on the computers we're used to like 720p, 1080p, a lot of stuff doesn't really for microcontrollers doesn't access more than 320 by 240.
Right. Yeah. Well, Eric, who was suggesting the Ice 40 says I know people getting them delivered in 3 months, which is cool.
Yeah, see, I've got like reels of RP 2040s right now because we're fabbing with them all the time, and we booked them out for the year. So I'm not against. FPGA is the right thing to use. It's just you can't get FPGAs right now,
right?
And they're expensive. And why use the correct tool when you can use the wrong tool?
The PIO peripheral on the RP 2040 is really neat. Really neat.
It's epic. Another thing is we need to have a spare PIO available. I don't know if they use all of them for the DVI. I don't think so because I know that the BBC Micro demo has DVI output and also does like USB host. So they must have, something. Yeah, or not USB host. They have the keyboard USB, but they also have a bunch of other things that I bet use PIO. So or like audio. So I think we might be good.
Yeah.
There's another thing. It's like would be cool if you could stream audio. If you had I2S coming in, and then maybe you could like put that in over the HDMI stream. That's very advanced. I don't think we'd be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't even have that working on the Broadcom baremetal yet on the Raspberry.
Yeah.
It is kind of fun if you. It would be nice
if you miss window your HDMI display, like you overscan it, you can actually see this little purple stripe on the left of the HDMI display, and you can see it shifting as the audio comes through.
Huh.
Yeah.
Neat. Yeah.
Anyways, that's what I'm up to. So I thought I would come by and say hi.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think people are excited. 2 other questions that are in the YouTube chat are like Greg asks about NTSC composite, and I would just say HDMI TVs.
So NTSC composite is quite tough because you do need to have an analog output and being able to DAC fast enough. There is the AD725, which I have used, and it takes RGB data out and will give you NTSC/PAL or S-video output, and it's actually a pretty fucking sweet chip. I hope Analog Devices still makes it. It probably got sacrificed to the silicon shortage, but we used it in the Fuse box, which was like a little retro emulator, and it looks great, and it does all your color burst for you, which is the and the really annoying like Y calculations to get color data out of NTSC. I did see that Rossum did NTSC out on the ESP32. I think by taking advantage of the DAC on the ESP32, but you need a DAC, you need a fast DAC. I mean, we did non-color TFT on the SAMD 21 and SAMD 51, I think.
Right.
We didn't do the color math. Yeah, we did that as a cute little like black and white demo, like 60 by 48 pixels or something. But you can do it. You can do it.
Cool. Well, I will let you go because I know it's Friday evening for you. There's a few more questions.
Okay.
Do you want to answer those? You want to look them over, or
no? Yeah,
I can take them after your.
If they're for me, you can ask me. I just can't see. I can't see what you're seeing, so you have to say.
Okay, so this is in the YouTube chat.
Yeah.
Retired Wizard says follow it up with a PS2 keyboard board with a level shifter.
Yeah, PS2. Well, what's interesting is like PS2 there is a PIO demo for PS2, but honestly, I think the USB host example is funner. Most people do not actually have true PS2 keyboards anymore. Like we sell one, and people don't like it because it's 5 volts. It's got that weird interface. It's not fun. Better to do USB host, to be honest.
Yeah,
do it in low speed.
I want to do USB host too, so that's perfect. That was on my CircuitPython 22 thing. Ron asks what BRAM is. It's block RAM on a FPGA. It's like one big chunk of RAM. George asks, is Adafruit going to embrace ML at any point?
We have tons of ML tutorials, especially for the RosiePi 4, which does quite well with TensorFlow Lite. We have like the only good tutorial on how to install it. Melissa's done a bunch of projects, including one to detect when a cat is on the kitchen counter and it plays a loud bell.
Does it just always return yes? Because that's
No,
the
it
case in my
doesn't.
house.
Well, no, we would see, can you train the cat not to jump on the kitchen counter? And she does actually a bunch of other projects. We did a couple with Microsoft. They have a training system.
Yeah.
We did a couple with TensorFlow Micro, which was enjoyable. And we did get it working. So yeah, we did a couple demos.
Yeah,
for machine learning. But honestly, I haven't done anything lately because it's not been super interesting to me, although I'm doing some camera stuff, and so we might have some machine learning camera stuff. But it's, you really want to have a Raspberry Pi 4.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, George clarified, I'm thinking chip level like ARM or ESP32, and I think you just answered it. It's like,
we do have TensorFlow Micro tutorials. TensorFlow Micro does not work as well as TensorFlow Lite. And I think there is a little bit of incongruence or cognitive dissonance where people, they look at TensorFlow and they're like, yeah, I want that. And then they use TensorFlow Micro and they're like, what do you mean? It's like I have, 2 tensors and they're like 32 by 32. Like, how come I can't have like 5,000 layers?
right.
It's very constrained. You can do stuff with it, but it's not magic. Let's put it that way. And a lot of stuff, you have to port by hand and you have to classify by hand, which is a lot of work.
Yeah, and I think that's something a lot of people are going to learn is like ML is just programming computers through data.
and it's a ton of work. It's a ton of work, and it's very frustrating. Because it's not easy to debug. You don't know why it's not working. You just know it's not working.
Right.
And so you have to just change your data collection. So it's like you're still programming. You're just it's categorization.
Yeah. WebBSK says on Twitch, ML is statistics in disguise, which I totally buy.
Well, I mean, technically it is statistics in disguise. It gives you a probability in the end, even.
Right.
It's just like with this much accuracy. I think we will do, and I think another thing is we're waiting for a couple more powerful chips. I mean, the thing is you need a powerful chip, and you can't get powerful chips right now.
Right.
Like again, the STM32 7 series would be great for that kind of stuff.
If you could buy it.
And you can't buy it because you need a very strong ARM core to take advantage of the ARM. The TensorFlow Lite for Micro is really very ARM focused. There's Tensilica stuff, but a lot of it's very optimized for SIMD instructions on ARM. That's how you can actually get reasonable throughput. But like it's really not the same as TensorFlow Lite. A lot of people, when they think of machine learning, they're thinking of TensorFlow Lite capabilities, not TensorFlow Micro.
Right.
I think
I was just gonna say I should own up that like whenever we've talked about this, I've kind of poo-pooed it myself. Like I've not seen a lot of reasons to do it.
Interesting. I think there's something there. I just don't know what yet. It's interesting. But I don't have a, there's a couple projects that I'm like, well, you can do this, like recognizing your cat jumped on your cabinet type stuff. But it's tough. There's not a lot of purpose right now. And
Right.
I think that it's, there's a lot of marketing around it, but, no customer is like, here's the problem it solves.
Right. Yeah, and I think your Adafruit strength because of you has always been like I want to write a guide for something and therefore I know I have a reason to use it.
Yeah, what does this actually solve?
Yeah,
and
it's not just cool tools, it's actually like this is a problem I have that's fixed by this thing.
Yeah, I think there's good art that can come out of machine learning because it's always kind of interesting to see randomness come in. But yeah, it's like it's still challenging. But you know what? I'm very open-minded, and I'm always keeping an eye on it. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of other people doing it, and so I don't feel like I have to jump in and do it, which is actually kind of
right.
nice. Like I'm glad it's like I don't want to be the one who does it all.
Yeah. Well, George
Let
says
other people.
I'm working on something very cool, and once I get it working, I'll share it. And that's perfect. We've got show and tell on Wednesdays. We'd love to see your ML projects and what you're doing with it.
Yeah.
That's what it would take to convince me that we should do it in CircuitPython.
I would, if I could see a really great, compelling example, but again, also a lot of the really good machine learning demos are closed source. You can't
Yeah.
modify them or update them, and that's
Right.
frustrating. Which
Right.
is why TensorFlow Lite is so great. It's there's a lot of tutorials on how to train models with it.
Right.
So yeah, all right. Well, I'm gonna go because
Cool.
it's 6:30. I'm gonna try to bang out some emails, and I might get a Pico wired up and just sort of I want to see if I can get DVI output from my Arduino. Because
Cool.
I kind of really don't want to program in the SDK. I love the SDK. It's wonderful, but like, I just don't need it in my life.
Yeah.
I got enough problems. Yeah, so I'm gonna see if I can get it.
I
If I can
got.
get it, yeah.
Yeah, Pico SDK. I know what you're talking about.
It's no, I mean,
That's how I
it
feel about
works.
CMake.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I just don't need like a make file. And for all the people say like, oh, Arduino is so simplistic. It's like I've never had a toolchain problem with Arduino. That wasn't like totally my fault because I fucked something up.
Yeah.
Like if you install Arduino IDE and you don't delete files you're not supposed to delete, it works. And I'm on Windows, and it's always a mess for me. Like I still don't have ESP IDF. I have to start over every time, and I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yep. I just went through that this week, and did you see I fixed? Well, Ivan helped me fix Wi-Fi on the S3.
Love it.
Yeah, and then Mark just did the review for me, so it's
Oh, love
merged
it.
in.
Well, we have a couple of. I have the ESP32 S3 Feather. Maybe I'll try it out.
Ooh, there you go. Should
Okay,
work.
I'm gonna go.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for hopping in. I hope
Yeah,
I
we'll be
didn't.
posting videos
Cool.
stuff.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Scott, and happy weekend, long weekend to anybody here in the
Oh
U.S.
yeah, I forgot about that.
That's right. We're not shipping on Monday, but we'll be back on Tuesday.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye bye.
All right, I will get my Discord back up, and I'll go through and answer any questions that I missed. It's been a little while since Lamore joined the stream, so that's always fun. She just pinged me on our internal Slack and was like, "Do you want me to come?" And I'm like, "Sure, if you want to, you can." Yeah, I can talk forever though, as all of you know. So I gotta make sure and let her go. Oh yeah, Hames Labs. Randall says, "What happened to the IMX RT 1011?" And it's basically we can't get it. I think. I think the gist is that we can't get it, and so it's just deprioritized because we can't get them right now. I believe that's the case. If you want to ask ladyada, you can ask on Wednesdays during Ask an Engineer. P-Boy asked, is it possible to get to the high-res camera on the Raspberry Pi? I assume that you can use it through that. Ron asks, when is your next stream? It will be next Friday. I don't think there's any reason not to do it next Friday. So it'll be a week minus 2 hours-ish from now. West Coast nerds all grok. Can't confirm West Coast has some very crusty nerds. Let's see. CircuitPython 8 chasing the beam. Did you see there's a pull request for floppy I/O that Jeff has? Let me switch back to that desktop. You'll see here there's add floppy I/O. So this allows you to use a floppy disk as your, not as a CircuitPy drive, but as like a drive. Yep, Ardosin a link to the Pico DVI. Maybe some ladyada deep dives in 2022. That's really what Desca ladyada is, or deep dives of ladyada. Our Destinode is currently exploring HDMI audio embedding and de-embedding on an FPGA. It's not an easy problem to solve. Yeah. That's why I want to use the Raspberry Pi to do it. I have eliminated micro SD issues. We have sadness, never gets past the rainbow screen. Ogre Drew, that's when GDB could help you, or Prince, to figure out why you're not getting past the rainbow screen, figure out where it's getting. Mike asks 3.5 millimeter floppies, 3.5 inch floppies versus 5 1/4. Both, I believe. I believe we have both working. My uncle has 8-inch floppies that I'm gonna probably pick up for him at some point and try to get the data off. He wants to back up data that he has from those 5-inch or the 8-inch floppies. Almost sent them to Lady Ada, but he didn't want them to get lost in the mail. It'd be interesting to get a sample data on a micro, transfer it to PC, model the data on PC, and push finalized smaller model back to the micro. Unexpected Maker says, but if you move to CMake, the IDF issue would go away. No, it wouldn't. It's a problem in the kconfig. It would still be there. I know you're right, though. I know my life would be easier if we were doing CMake. DCD says, I have an 8-inch hardware in my garage. Does it work? C. Grover asks, are the decimal and fraction modules in consideration from future versions? Not that I'm aware of. I would suggest, I don't think we have an issue for it, so I'd suggest opening an issue. I know you're trolling. It's fine. There's a speakeasy in Austin called the Floppy Disk Repair. Nice. Okay, I think I'm caught up. We've got 20 minutes or so. And what do we want to do in those 20 minutes? Any suggestions? 8-inch floppy drives, they probably take a couple amps to power up. The drives that my uncle has they're dual 8-inch floppy drives. They're these like huge chunkin' things where it has like 2 slots. Everything old is new again. Yeah. Oh, using Jepler's microdecimal. Yeah, just use that. Ron, it's K is in the letter config. Or K is in kernel. I think it originates with the Linux kernel. Oh, Drew the Ogre, who's also Ogre Drew on Discord, asked in Twitch, the touch glass has decided not to stick to my Pi TFT. Considering how much I wasn't using the touch capability, is there a problem disconnecting it? I don't think so. I think you can just remove it and be fine. Because I know you can buy TFTs without it. So I'm pretty sure it's fine to just remove. Carestring says, decimal from the standard lib, you can look at what PyPI uses. There's this standard lib implementation in pure Python. I think that should work. I think that's what microdecimal is. MicroPython has a really good, there's a MicroPython lib repo that a lot of the standard libraries were actually ported to. 8-inch were used to boot the VAX 11 780. He has it, my uncle has it with a H89, Heathkit 89 kit thing. And also CPM, yeah, I think it's running CPM. Sounds like there's going to be an Austin meetup. Patrick says, I couldn't think of any reason to use CircuitPython with a floppy, and then I think PT or ladyada said for archiving stuff, and I was like, ooh, and I got out a pile of floppies I brought home from my parents this summer. Oh, nice. David says, that's what my drive connected to, the H89. We tried to boot it up, and it fried, unfortunately. Like the power supply, one of the capacitors blew. That was going to be our first attempt. But he like did work in the 80s for the city of Seattle and has some CPM stuff that they have. Pierre says, I remember CPM on the Commodore 128. Drew says, trying to ask ladyada herself. If you want to ask, I would just say put it on the support forum. Is a great place for a question like that too. Ron says some hackers claim they got to the root of PS5. I think it's only a matter of time. Randall says 80 columns or bust. Yeah. Lots of people have 8-inch floppies. Thanks for the warning. Probably will let out magic smoke here too. Yeah, I think it's, I would hope that if I fix that part of the power supply, it would work again. There's like actually schematics, so I bet I could get it going. I was kind of surprised that it's basically like two computers in one. It's like one computer that's actually the computer, and then the other computer is like the terminal part. But yeah, I'm like, you know, I have a place in my heart for this retro stuff. I think there's a lot to be said for learning computing on computers that are single task. We've talked about this before, but like that's why the Raspberry Pi stuff that I've been doing is really interesting. And yeah, it's a bummer that the Pi 400 doesn't work, but I was really interested in the Pi 400 because of the keyboard, and the keyboard isn't connected that way. It's connected over a USB host chip on the PCIe bus. So there's more work to do there to get USB host working, and that's really what I wanted to do. So if I kind of think if the BLE stuff works out faster than this two-month period, then I might take a look at the USB host stuff, because I think that'd be really neat. But I want to make sure that the ESP S3 in particular is in good shape before I switch off it. Supposedly 8-inch drives were also in use in Minuteman missile command capsules, but never got into one to confirm. If you need a hardware-specific beta tester, you know how to find me. I have a couple Pi 400s here as well. Because I really like, that is one of the main reasons I did it, but it just took so long to work on, and it's not documented that well. There's a lot going on, so I just kind of ran out of steam. You know what? Maybe what I'll do, the thing I was thinking I could do today. Oh yeah, and it's a short week next week because taking Monday off. The thing that sometimes what I like to do is I like to just start reading up on topics. So I was just starting to look at BLE on the ESP. So that's kind of what I was thinking about doing. Yeah, Bruce says BLE workflow for ESP will be nice. Yeah, I hope so. I think it could be really cool. So there's, let's just talk over BLE on the ESP. If folks have questions, go ahead and ask them. Switch to tab, this tab down here. I have a second browser off screen. where I can see how many people are watching. Bruce is on winter ski hiatus, meaning I ski, then sleep, then ski again. So not much coding. Is it going okay? Because I was listening to a thing about Stevens Pass here in Washington where they don't have enough staff. This week has been more of a sideways dive. I'm liking it. Yeah, we go where the questions take us. Nice. Randall says, anybody remember bubble memory? That is before my time. Johnny says, I remember having to boot into CP/M on my Commodore 128 just to use some word processor. Was working for a home computing magazine and they required the articles in that format. Ogre Drew says, oh dear, bubble memory. Raining and warm now. Yeah, it was nice and cool earlier. Pierre says, BLE on the ESP, will it support all the same BLE functions, HID in mind? That's my plan. So the nice thing about BLE at this point in CircuitPython is we have a standard API, right? So we have the API that is kind of like defined by shared bindings, and then it's just up to the lower levels to implement it. So my hope, and BLE is pretty standard. Like BLE 5 means that it does these things. So yeah, my hope is that once we have BLE on the ESP chips, it'll basically do everything the NRF stuff does. What you won't have is like NRF is really good at low power, and like that won't necessarily carry over, but like all the functionality shouldn't be a problem. David says, now we have FRAM and chips. Hi, Alvaro. Alvaro. Did I say it? I don't know where the emphasis is. Solid state, but worked kind of like old school drum memory. You had to wait for the address you wanted to come back around to the read-write section to deal with it. His tech support included just formatting it. Oh yeah, Australians can't travel, so they can't send their college kids who are on summer break to the Great White North to work at resorts. Hamslab says, did anyone use Forth? I had it on my C64. There's some people that still like Forth. Like there's a Forth version of Forth for microcontrollers I know folks use. FRAM. I'm not sure what FRAM is. David will have to be more specific. Okay, so yeah, we could just keep chatting. It's fine. This is I'll probably just read over this and then call it a weekend. So there's like two parts to a Bluetooth stack, and that's better. So there's like the BLE application. This is CircuitPython, and then there's like stuff on top of that. And then there's the host code, and then there's a kind of a transfer layer, transaction layer into the controller. And the controller is the thing that's like really time sensitive, and then the host is a lot less time sensitive. And we actually have our own host stack that we cribbed from. We have the host stack that we cribbed from Arduino. That's what Dan added for the Dan added for like the BLE with the external chip. But the ESP IDF is set up to use Nimble, which is a BLE host stack from the Minute project. And Pierre is asking, ESP uses Minute for BLE support. They use Nimble from Minute. I don't think they use all of Minute. They just use the Nimble stack. And the Nimble stack is actually used, like MicroPython uses it as well. So I think it's either like there's these two modern free or like RTOS projects that have BLE stacks. There's Minute with Nimble, and then there's also Zephyr. And Zephyr is just like this giant project that has a really good Bluetooth stack in it, but it's like not easy to split apart. And so ESP IDF uses Nimble. The MicroPython folks use Nimble. I think we kind of want to go towards Nimble in CircuitPython as well. HamsLab says, it's kind of interesting. CircuitPython does a lot of what Forth did, making it easier than assembly or C. Ogre Drew says, FRAM is the same principle as DRAM, but it uses rust instead of a dielectric and is non-volatile. David says, FRAM is a new generation of non-volatile memory. It's an acronym for Ferroelectric Random Access Memory. New to me, who builds it? I don't know. Patrick says, maybe an in the weeds, maybe a deep dive, but I'd love to chat about libraries that use network services and how to properly support on-board network and peripheral network access where we seem to pass sockets. There's a design pattern there I don't grok. Sorry. Had to ban somebody from the Twitch chat. It's interesting. Going back to Patrick's question about network patterns, I think it's going to change some with the async IO stuff. I think anything network related, we're going to want to shift towards async IO world, because async IO is great if you're waiting on IO, like network traffic. What I remember is that, so the history of network support is that there's the ESP32 SPI library came first, and then after that came the native support on the S2, which I did socket pool with. And socket pool is this non-standard CPython API, but it's pretty close to CPython socket. The only difference is that CPython socket has basically like all the functions itself, and it's a global. So regular Python code assumes it's running on something with native networking, and I didn't want that to be the case. And so what we did is, like, you have to instantiate a socket pool, and then you pass it around, and you can treat it like you would treat a socket module. And that, so generally what you want to do is like pass stuff in so that you can use it. And that way, that in theory, you should be able to pass in the ESP32 SPI stuff, but you should also be able to pass in the socket pool stuff. Now, I had always intended on going back and updating the APIs from the ESP32 SPI side of things to match ESP32 SPI things to match the APIs that we came up with for socket pool, but I don't think I ever actually did that fully, so that's part of the problem. I don't know. I'm kind of wishing, when I did that socket pool work, I was very much in the camp of like, we're not going to have a Wi-Fi workflow. Did I open an issue? No, I don't remember. It was a while ago. I was pretty set on not having a Wi-Fi workflow. Like, MicroPython has this web REPL thing that didn't work well with soft reloads, and I just generally don't have a great experience like provisioning Wi-Fi stuff. Like, telling a Wi-Fi chip what your credentials are is a huge pain. But Brent has been doing a lot of really good work for Adafruit IO, in particular with Whippersnapper, about getting people going with Wi-Fi really quickly. And so he's kind of like, his success, like Brent and Lauren's success with Whippersnapper and making it easy to do Wi-Fi, has really made me start to brainstorm, start to think about what a good CircuitPython over Wi-Fi workflow could look like. Alvaro saying heart web ripple. Yeah, so I think I may have gotten that wrong. It may be worth going more towards what MicroPython does, where MicroPython's networking support is like a lot more native. Which is interesting. For Bluetooth, they kind of went the opposite direction. They made Bluetooth less native, but I think I got the impression that they want to go the other direction. They want more native Bluetooth. So I don't know. I think Ron says, what is the difference between sockets and ports? A port is like the number you assign a socket. Socket, I guess, is also like a TCP term. So it's like ports are a generic, like, it's like one rung lower. It's like lower level than a socket. A socket is like a thing that TCP does to talk between servers, whereas port is generally just a number for the network interface, I think. I'm not a great networking person. There's some other folks in the CircuitPython community that have done a lot better network stuff than I have, including Patrick. So know that I'm open to rethinking it. And I think Async IO is a good chance for us to like revisit that a little bit more. Andrew points out that Infineon and Cypress offer some FRAM devices. It's on some of their dev boards. There's an MSP 430 from DigiKey with FRAM as well. Randall points out that 4719, Adafruit product 4719 is an FRAM breakout. Terahertz processors, that's wild. All right, I think I've successfully stalled. Are there any final questions? Carestring points out that socket doesn't necessarily need to be a TCP socket. On Unix, there are local sockets that don't go through the network stack. Mark says, one of my first co-op jobs years ago was all low-level networking. Wi-Fi still confuses me at times. Yeah, networking's complicated. And I don't particularly enjoy working with other computers, like other communication. So I tend to stick away from networking if I can. Artisanal says, I think it's the reverse. Sockets are OS level objects and ports are networking stack addresses. Ask Patrick's going to go change the flat tire. Thanks for the stream. And deep dive notes will auto publish in a couple hours. Okay, cool. I'll get those in there. Socket are bound to ports, so socket is one endpoint of a communication link. All right, everybody's peacing out. Thank you all so much. There's a lot of networking theory if you're into that. This is not a great place to get it. Let me switch and I'll recap housekeeping. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and particularly being supportive for the unknown future of deep dives, but not for the next couple of months. So next week we'll deep dive on the S3 stuff. We'll see how far I get on ESP BLE. If you want to chat with me and a lot of others, you can go to join the Adafruit Discord server by going to the URL adafru.it/discord. We'd love to have you. We'd love to chat with you there. That's all day, so not just the YouTube chat, but that's whenever you're watching this. If you want to support me, please support Adafruit by going to adafruit.com. They pay me to do these streams. They pay me to work on CircuitPython and sometimes procrastinate. So thanks to them. Deep dives happen every week. We'll plan on next week at 2 p.m. On Friday, which is the same time we started today. All the notes are on Discord now, so thank you again to Patrick and David for taking notes and maintaining that repo of all the notes. I really appreciate it. And I think all I have to do is take my mic off and pet the cat, and we'll be out of here. Thanks again, and I'll chat with you on Discord and deep dive with you next week. So, cat. Are you ready for some pets? Yeah? Kitty, kitty. Thanks again, everybody.